Hello everyone, this is a monthly wrap-up of all the news items I reported throughout the month. Helpful for anyone who's missed any of my MiSTer news updates. Feel free to skip this video if you've seen all of this month's news. I hope you enjoyed, so let's begin. Work on SNAC support for the PlayStation Core has started. It's not being implemented by the Core's developer, but someone else. That's all that can be revealed for now regarding SNAC support. SNAC is a way to get original console controllers working on the MiSTer FPGA with no lag. This is accomplished by allowing the core to communicate with the controller the same exact way the original console does. This communication must be done through the I/O board's USB serial port. Along with allowing you to use original PlayStation controllers with no lag on the core, it will also be possible to use a GunCon 1 for light gun gaming and other PlayStation peripherals like a DDR mat. Another thing I want to talk about is other benefits that can be possible with the addition of another RAM stick. The developer stated on Discord that along with 100% accurate sound, it's possible to achieve a higher frame rate, 24-bit color rendering, and many other possibilities. The developer has a lot in mind. As the development of the core progresses, it will be better known exactly what additional features will require a second RAM stick. If you want more control of Linux for the MiSTer FPGA project, there are two available Arch-based distros that you can install. These are not meant to replace the Linux the MiSTer OS runs on. They are alternatives for more advanced users who want the control that Arch Linux affords them. There's two different projects available, one called MiSTer Arch and another called MiSTer FPGA. So exactly what can you do with these distros? Well, with MiSTer Arch, you can have SSH FS mounting of remote file systems, even with systemd auto mounting, BTRFS and BTRBK remote snapshot possibilities, USB IP in case you don't have a carrier board yet and forget to buy a USB on-the-go cable, repurpose the hardware for other FPGA shenanigans. Maybe you want to develop your own FPGA stuff but still want to run Arch on the resulting system. And for MiSTer FPGA, the ability to update and add Linux drivers. Don't wait 30 seconds for your Super NES 8GB compressed zip file to open. It's now instantaneous. Extend your vintage computer cores by using your favorite open source tools on MiSTer FPGA and the share folders. Develop for the MiSTer FPGA platform, then MiSTer FPGA images are for you. You can install development kits for your favorite consoles and develop games for them right on your MiSTer. As you can see, these are power user features and targeted for those that want to do more tinkering or want to have an all-in-one development kit. Other users should just stick with the base Linux, which does a great job of playing your games. A few weeks ago, we had beta GunCon 2 support for CRTs. Now, there is a beta driver to use Namco's GunCon 3 for light gun games in MiSTer. This is significant because it allows you to play light gun games on a flat screen TV. Older Namco GunCons and other light guns work on different technology that makes them unusable on modern television displays. The GunCon 3 was made specifically with modern displays in mind. If you want to help out the testing of this beta driver, then you can head over to the controllers channel on the MiSTer FPGA Discord. Darren O on Twitter has released a beta core for the Toaplan V1 arcade hardware. The core is in active development with assistance from Blackwine and Attract 17. Games already running on this core are Zero Wing, Outzone, and Hellfire. Other games being worked on are Truxton, Vimana, Fireshark, and Rally Bike. Demon's World is another game that runs on the hardware, but a core for that game is already slated to be implemented by Jotego. As with any beta core, expect there to be issues, but you can help out the development by reporting any issue you may come across on GitHub. The core for now must be downloaded through GitHub, so head on over there if you want to give it a try. And other cores getting miscellaneous fixes and updates are AO486, Minimig, Vectrex, Arduboy, AY38500, BK0011M, Specialist, and Vector 06C. For more information about the cores and the MiSTer project in general, you can visit the MiSTer FPGA forums or the MiSTer FPGA Discord server. The PlayStation Core has added a feature not available on a real PlayStation. There is now the ability to enable a real CPU data cache. This gives you the added benefit of increasing the frame rate in games. This even works without the need for an additional RAM stick. It's an optional debug feature, so if it causes problems, you can always disable it. On Twitter, the developer posted screenshots of the speed increases in some games. In Diablo, you can see the frame rate going from 19 frames per second to 25 frames per second. In Glover, you can see the frame rate going from 24 frames per second to 32 frames per second. King's Field gets a nice speed bump going from 20 frames per second to 30 frames per second. Another feature added to the core are exact video timings for PAL and NTSC analog video. So you should now get a correct aspect ratio and much improved analog output on the PlayStation Core. Before, when trying analog output, I would get a shift the screen if things worked correctly, but most of the games would display a rolling image and incorrect colors. Now, all the games I've tried are working perfectly. I have my MiSTer setup connected through Composite to a 13-inch television. Core developer Jotego has officially released his System 16 core to the public, so you no longer need to be a Patreon member to obtain it. You won't be able to obtain it using the standard MiSTer updater. You will either have to download it and install it manually from his JTBin GitHub, or you can install the Update All script on your MiSTer FPGA to have it automatically installed. The System 16 was arcade hardware developed by Sega. It ran games such as Fantasy Zone, Shinobi, Alien Syndrome, Altered Beast, Golden Axe, and many more. It's a great core for fans of Sega arcade games. Jotego also hinted at support for 5x crop. Because of overscan, some games would allow for extra space at the top and bottom of the screen area. This will allow you to use 5x crop with integer scale in 1080p and no important information being cut off. To get a great detailed explanation on why you would want to use 5x crop, check out a post regarding this on RetroRGB. A link will be in the description. Jotego has also released beta cores for Sly Spy and Boulder Dash. These do require Patreon subscriptions, so please support him if you're interested in these cores or appreciate the work he does. If you've purchased an aluminum MiSTer FPGA case from MiSTer Addons, there is now a conversion kit for users who want to replace an analog I/O board to a digital one. This will help those who want to switch to a digital I/O board so they can add a second RAM stick to their MiSTer setup. The price of the conversion kit is $10. MiSTer Vendor Ultimate MiSTer is going to start selling a new all-in-one MT32 Pi setup. This will include a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W, 2 heatsinks, a micro SD card, a USB 3.0 cable, and a stand and case with built-in screen. It will be assembled and ready to go and cost €80. If you want a more compact MT32 Pi, he will also be selling the MT32 Pi Lite, which will do the exact same thing, but you will not get a built-in screen. That Lite setup will cost €60 and will also include the Pi Zero 2W and SD card. The MT32 Pi is a way of getting upgraded music for computer cores that support external sound modules. And other cores getting miscellaneous fixes and updates are: the Mac Plus core has added serial port support for console and PPP connections, fixes to keyboard and SCSI, a Mac SE mode for completeness sake, floppy access has been fixed, and the framework has been updated so you can use shadow mask and adaptive scanlines. The Apple One's core's framework has been updated also. This will allow the core to more easily add newer features such as adaptive scanlines. The TRS-80 core has also had its framework updated. More enhancements are being done to the PlayStation Core. This time, we have a widescreen hack that will give you a wider field of view in 3D games. It doesn't work for all games, and it can cause glitches in games that it does work in. But it is a really cool feature that totally changes the way you play games when it works. Only 3D objects are set to widescreen. Any 2D objects and layers will be stretched. The developer received help on how to implement this from Laxer3A, another FPGA PlayStation Core developer. It's great to see that information is being shared between devs. I created a video dedicated to this feature, so be sure to check it out. Also, last week I reported that a CPU data cache was added to the core. In addition to that, the core itself runs a little faster than an actual PlayStation. Dave's Game Room has a video demonstrating the difference between the core and a real PlayStation. An overclocking kernel is being developed for the MiSTer project. In the MiSTer FPGA forums, user CoolBHO3K found a way to overclock the Cortex A9 CPU cores that are on the DE10 Nano. Why would you want to overclock the CPU? Well, it will help with hybrid emulation efforts where some parts of a core would be implemented on the FPGA and others would be implemented in software on the Cortex A9 CPUs. It will also slightly reduce game loading in some cores. Anything that is CPU bound should see speed improvements. MT32 emulation done on the DE10 Nano itself should work better with an overclock. The option to underclock to 400 MHz will also be available, which will lower power requirements without affecting core performance much. This will not overclock the FPGA, just the ARM CPU. Always be aware that if you overclock a system, more power and heat will be produced. While the creator of this kernel believes that it won't harm the DE10 Nano, try this at your own risk, and if you do, make sure you have really good cooling. A beta core of the Konami GX400 arcade hardware has been released. The only game supported now is Nemesis, which is a version of Gradius. The core must be manually installed, and you can download it from the project's GitHub. Other games that run on the hardware and might lead to future cores are Black Panther, City Bomber, Galactic Warriors, Gradius, Hypercrash, Konami GT, Nyan Nyan Panic, Salamander, and Twin Bee. Core developer Jotego has released a new beta core of the arcade game Road Fighter to his Patreon subscribers. Road Fighter is a top-down racing game developed by Konami and released in 1984. It was Konami's first racing game, and the goal of the game is to reach each stage's finish line before you run out of time. Jotego also has some informative development posts on Twitter. In those posts, he describes an issue in a core that he's developing and how he will go about to solve it. Eventually, he figures out the problem and says that it had to do with undocumented test bits in the game. This goes to show that even if you have official documentation for a game or hardware, there are still idiosyncrasies, bugs, and undocumented features that developers have to figure out on their own. While browsing the MiSTer FPGA forums, I found some developments on getting MIDI working on the NES core. There currently is a test core for the NES that allows you to connect a MIDI keyboard to your MiSTer and play along to Nintendo music with the core's built-in NSF player. If this feature evolves any further, it would be great for chiptune musicians. It would make it possible for them to create NES music on a MiSTer FPGA. Core developer Grey Rogue has a video on YouTube demonstrating the feature. The latest MiSTer stage event is now available in podcast form or on YouTube. The MiSTer stage events are audio interviews with members of the MiSTer FPGA community. They are done on the MiSTer FPGA Discord and are hosted by Artemio, the creator of the 240p test suite. This latest stage event features Alan SWX and Robert Pipe. Alan SWX has worked on cores such as the Apple II, Mac Plus, Arkanoid Arcade, and many, many more. Robert Pipe is the developer of the PlayStation core, but he's also worked on the Game Boy Advance core, added save states to cores, and many more developments. Are you holding off on getting an MT32 Pi? Well, an option that can help you wait is to use your Android phone as a MIDI module. Zalalala's Attic Treats on YouTube demonstrates how you can use your Android phone to play MIDI music on games and cores that support external sound modules. This is possible by using the Fluid Synth app that you can download from the Google Play Store. Several games for older computers have the ability to give you enhanced music by connecting an external sound module. MiSTer added the ability to use these modules, but you're not limited to using the original ones. Projects like the MT32 Pi allow you to use a Raspberry Pi to emulate those sound modules. The Fluid Synth app will let your Android device emulate an external sound module, giving you another option. The music will play out of your Android phone, so it's recommended that you plug in some external speakers to it. Keep in mind that this is how those original sound modules worked. They output their sound independent of the computer, so you still have to connect speakers to them or plug the module into an available audio input port on a computer. For the full instructions on how to set up an Android phone with MiSTer for MIDI music, check out the YouTube's channel's pinned comment. And other cores getting miscellaneous fixes and updates are the arcade cores Asteroids, Asteroids Deluxe, Canyon Bomber, Dig Dug, and Dominoes have had their frameworks updated to support shadow masks and 256-phase 10-bit adaptive scanlines. The Centipede core has added high scores, fixed dip switches, and HDMI aspect ratio. The RX 7800 core added a video mixer and should handle the MiSTer scan doubler now. And the Dig Dug core added analog video flip, Verilator simulator support, and the framework has been updated. Get ready for some button mashing because Jotego has released a beta core for Hypersports to his Patreon subscribers. Developed by Konami, Hypersports was an Olympic sports arcade game from 1984. Players would compete in different events like swimming, skeet shooting, archery, and more. Jotego also fixed a bug in Forgotten Worlds that was causing issues with the background star field. An alpha core for the arcade game Terra Cresta has been made available. Written by Darren O on Twitter, in its current alpha state, the CRT timings aren't right yet, and you have to make sure you add a line to your MiSTer INI file. The core can be downloaded from a link on the announcement tweet. Terra Cresta is a vertically scrolling shooter developed by Nichibutsu. It is a sequel to the 1980s arcade game Moon Cresta. You take control of a starship named the Winged Gallibur to help you save humanity from destruction. In the game, you can collect different ship parts to give you unique weapon abilities. A MiSTer FPGA CRT guide is being created and in discussion on the official MiSTer FPGA forums. There is a work-in-progress version available for download that you can take a look at. It currently has info on different methods of plugging in CRTs, and it also has some recommended settings you can try for different cores. Since it's still a work in progress, information can change, but eventually the plan is to create a dedicated wiki. Another option for using MT32 Pi on your MiSTer is available. As of version 0.11.2, the MT32 Pi project now supports network MIDI via raw UDP sockets. This is compatible with MiSTer's MIDI link and should allow you to use a Raspberry Pi for MT32 music over the network without the need to purchase a Pi hat for your MiSTer. In order to get sound, you will have to plug in the Raspberry Pi to some speakers because the Pi will be outputting the music. Also know that Wi-Fi connections can pose a problem with skipped and hanging notes, so Ethernet will work better. An MT32 Pi hat will still give you the best experience, but this is just another option you can use to enjoy MT32 sound with your MiSTer. The MT32 Pi project is a way of getting upgraded music for computer cores that support external sound modules. Some new mappers have been added to the NES cores. Mappers were extra chips added to NES cartridges that would enhance the capabilities of the NES. They will allow it to create bigger and more complex games. The new mappers added are Mapper 268 and 547. Mapper 268 is used on some unofficial multi-game cards, including Data East All-Star Collection, a modern release by Retrobit. Mapper 547 was a mapper developed by Konami, which was used in their rare Space School series of titles developed for the education market. This Konami mapper was actually housed in a cartridge called the QTA adapter that accepted the smaller Space School carts. This would keep the cost of the software down by not having the mapper installed in each individual software cart. Thanks to Allen SWX, MiSTer has a new help menu system, and you can now view help documentation for cores. This documentation will give you info on the core and how to set it up. This menu system is a very convenient addition that can help users better set up their MiSTer systems with fewer visits to the internet. To get this new help system, you can either go to the MiSTer system settings and select the new help option. You will then be shown a list of cores that you can view a help file on. Select the core you want, and then select the readme.md file and you can then browse the help documentation. To exit, just keep hitting the back button on your gamepad or hit escape on your keyboard. You can also access the help menu within a running core. Just bring up the core's main menu, then go to its system settings and select help. And other cores getting miscellaneous fixes and updates are the Game Boy, Genesis, Mega CD, Neo Geo, NES, Super NES, Sega Master System, TurboGrafx-16 have all had their framework updated. The NES core also has fixes to MIDI, the PPU, and the MMC5 mapper. The Sinclair QL core can now remember a mounted hard drive image across boots, and its framework has been updated. The Minimig core and Sam Coop cores have had their frameworks updated. The AO46 core had a value for a variable reduced, and its MiSTer FS DOS program that allows you to easily transfer files into AO486 has had fixes and tweaks. The AO486 core has also had its framework updated. Note that you have to update both the MiSTer FS program available on the AO46 GitHub and the main MiSTer software for all these changes to be applied. And for the main MiSTer program, MiSTer Game Launcher files now support up to 6 actions, a reset action, and other improvements and fixes. You can set sync polarity and override configuration based on video mode, IDE and floppy fixes for x86, GunCon support via Retro Zord adapter, GunCon 3 tweaks. Keep in mind that the GunCon additions does not mean that support for any of the GunCons has been officially added. You still need to manually add the driver from Nolan Nicholson's GitHub. Finally, there also have been other fixes and tweaks to the main MiSTer program. So that's another month of awesome MiSTer development news. Links to all my sources are provided in the description. Make sure you also check out retrorgb.com to see my MiSTer news videos in blog form and to also get more retro related content. And if possible, support them on Patreon too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button and its bell icon so you can get notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.